They actually went and did it. They remade How to Train Your Dragon. And honestly, I wasn't gonna watch it because I thought it would just be another remake that missed what made the original so special. But I'm glad I gave it a shot because it genuinely surprised me. And it might actually be one of the best live action adaptations we've seen in years, like no joke. So let's break down what worked, what didn't, and whether this remake stands tall or if it's just another forgettable attempt to cash in on nostalgia. This is how you do a remake. Most live action remakes feel like watered down versions of the originals with too much director input or not enough heart, or sometimes both. But this one, it's grounded, it's true to the original, and more importantly, it understands the emotional core, which is very, very important for this franchise. And like I said, it's easily the most well-crafted remake I've seen in a long time, and it actually feels like a movie made with care, not just another bad remake. First, let's talk about the cast because it could have went completely sideways, but thankfully it doesn't. Even though they're not one-to-one visual matches to their animated counterparts, the performances feel right, like the spirit of each character carried over. Mason Thames as Hiccup honestly surprised me. I didn't know much about him going into this movie, but he nails the awkward, determined energy of early Hiccup. It's a really solid lead performance that kind of grows on you the more the movie goes on. And then there's Gerald Butler, returning as Stoic. Perfect. Just perfect. No one else could have played the role. And I've got to say this clearly, anyone who doubted Nico Parker as Astrid shouldn't be anywhere near a casting room because she absolutely kills the role. She brings the perfect amount of toughness and vulnerability to Astrid, which is the perfect amount compared to the animated counterpart. But you're probably thinking, what's the biggest win? Toothless. Toothless is the biggest win. They nailed Toothless, and that's no small feat. And let's be real, Toothless was always going to be the hardest part to get right. The animated version is so iconic, and messing that up would have tanked the whole movie. But his design here is perfect. The movements are smooth but still animalistic. There's weight to every step, every head tilt, and the sounds are way more intense in this version, which caught me off guard in the best way. There's a real physicality to him now, especially when his teeth come out. He's adorable and kind of terrifying. That balance is exactly what makes him work. And visually, this movie is peak. The sets, the dragons, the flying sequences, they all feel like living, breathing versions of the animated world. It doesn't feel like cosplay, it feels real. And speaking of real, we have to talk about the sound design because it might be the most underrated part of this movie. The first meeting between Hiccup and Toothless, every growl, every breath, the wind moves through the trees, pulls you in. It's subtle, but it adds so much to the tension and wonder of that moment. It's the kind of sound design you feel as much as you hear. And I usually don't do spoilers, but I can't skip over the final act because it delivers. Everything clicks, like the pacing, the stakes, the emotion. It's awesome. It's exactly how I imagined the final battle would play out in the live action, and they absolutely stick the landing. You get payoff for every major character, and it ends on a note that feels earned, not rushed, not overdone, just right. And it's a one-for-one shot of the animated movie, which makes it all that much better. But no movie is perfect, so here are the only real nitpicks I had. There's one scene with a purple sky where you can clearly tell it was green screened in. It's not terrible, but it pulled me out of the moment for a second. And honestly, the only casting that didn't work for me was Ruffnut, the sister and the duo twins. I would have preferred they just casted twins to play the twins. You get what I'm saying? It's not bad. They still do great performances and bring the characters to life, but I personally would have just rather had someone who looked more like the characters. But in the bigger picture of this entire movie, it's just some small stuff that I thought was worth mentioning because there's not that much wrong with this movie. And before we get into my final thoughts and what I thought of the entire movie, let's talk about why this remake worked. It works because it respects the How to Train Your Dragon legacy without just copying it one-to-one. It builds the world in a grounded way. It leans into the emotional core. It updates the look, the sound, and the performances, but never loses sight of what made the original so powerful. It's not a reinvention. It's a celebration of the movies that came before it, and that's why it's so much better than the soulless remakes. So, does the remake work? That was a question I asked myself and you guys going into this movie, and I can confidently say yes. Yes, it does. And in my opinion, it probably worked better than most of us expected. This isn't just another crash grab remake, so if you love the animated trilogy, you'll find so much to enjoy here. It doesn't replace the original, but it stands proudly alongside it. Thank you for joining me in today's movie review. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and feel free to check out my video on the screen now. I put a lot of work into these videos and I try to improve on each one, so if you can, give the video on screen a click. It tells the algorithm algorithm, this video is worth watching. And as always, stay curious and let's keep the conversation going.